Welcome back to the channel. Before we get into talking about the Keystone Armory Ripsaw, I kind of want to give a disclaimer on the video. It's not really going to be a super tactical shooting video. This is more of kind of a history of this gun, because really we say it numerous times in the video, but there is nothing on the internet about this gun. There's videos, but they're like minute and a half, 3 minutes long, and it's just people shooting the gun. There is no history of kind of how this gun became what it is. You can't find any history about this gun anywhere. I tried, and really all you can find, mostly just a couple auction sites that have sold one or two of them. Other than that, like, there's almost nothing about this gun. So before we get into Hunter from Bomb City Armory, who I acquired this gun from, got to thank a bunch of the sponsors. American Triggers, run American Triggers in pretty much everything except this gun as of right now. Difrico, love Difrico, and again, don't have one on here, but they also make awesome stuff. They just came out with Das Boot, which I have somewhere back here. Burn-proof gear. If you want, under here is one of the rail wraps, suppressor covers, chest rigs, plate carriers, belts, bags. One of their bags is actually right here. Infinity targets. They make awesome targets. If you can't shoot steel, maybe you're shooting green tips, or maybe you just can't afford steel, they make great rubber targets, and I use them all the time. Okay, so I'm gonna try and keep most of what we talked about uncut. It's about 30 minutes. If there's any kind of repetitive stuff, maybe I'll cut it out. But other than that, I want to try and preserve pretty much everything that we talked about this gun. And I'll try and leave chapters down below, so if you don't want to hear all that crap, and you just want to hear it shoot and see it shooting, that's going to be closer to the end of the video. So now I'm going to roll that conversation and get ready to shoot this thing. So we're here at Bomb City Armory with the man himself who has built-ish this gun, and he's going to kind of go over the ins and outs and a little bit of the history of this gun, because I know nothing and you won't really find anything on the internet. So Hunter,
yeah, it was our little trip in internet archaeology. Yeah, so this is sort of a Keystone Lake Armory Ripsaw. So back when this place used to be Irwin's Pawn and Gun, a gentleman named Hayden was owner's son. He placed a bunch of orders from Keystone Lake Armory because they had some interesting product. These guns were kind of their flagship item. They sold them as 7.5-inch 5.56 guns or 7.5-inch 300 blackout rifles. And what they were doing is they would sell it as a complete rig. So you'd get, you know, a full lower, a full upper, and that would have the integral suppressed features. It was a billet upper and lower. It wasn't folding. There was nothing like that going on, nothing particularly fancy. It was just kind of an early integral pre-built rifle. I'm not sure when Keystone Lake Armory got its start, or exactly when they went under. You know, all of that is unfortunately lost to the vacuum of the internet. You know, none of the social media sites or pages still exist. So,
yeah.
But anyway,
I couldn't find anything.
No.
Like, there's like 8-year-old videos of people shooting them for like a minute and a half, and other than that, nothing.
Sure. Yeah. Some of the more like the better videos were from 13 to 15 years ago. So I mean, these are pretty old as far as integrals go. But so what was happening was Keystone Lake Armory was producing some 22 caliber rifle cans, and they were making these guns, and Irwin's was ordering a bunch of them. Customers were paying for them. Everything was kosher. They were selling like hotcakes, even back when it was on, you know, paper NFA form. So people were waiting the 1.5 to 2 years to get these guns, by the time their stamps and everything came through. So I think we ended up selling, like, I don't know, it was like high 50s or something of these rifles to the public here. This was before my time, before I worked here. But then the problems started. The guns themselves seemed to run okay. Hayden was the primary gunsmith here. He worked on several of them to get them to run a little bit better. 7.5-inch guns, particularly 5.56 guns, you're tapping that gas so close to the chamber that the pressure is really not very high, and the gas is super volatile because it's going to continue to explode. That unburnt powder that's in that expanding gas is going to continue to explode until it expands enough, hits enough oxygen, or has enough duration to explode and release all its propellant gases. So you're tapping it so close to the source that gas hasn't had the time to fully expand and to generate the pressures required to get that bolt unlocked, that bolt carrier group to have enough inertia to get back, extract, eject, cock the hammer, come all the way back to where the buffer is almost touching the very back of the buffer tube, which would be far enough back to lock open an empty magazine, which is like the furthest back thing the system has to do in order to function, and then head all the way back home and feed the next round. These guns, the 5.56 ones, as far as I'm aware, never really ran perfect, but they ran okay. So there was some quality control issues as far as getting the guns to run 100%. And then the ATF got their noses involved in it.
Of course.
So these were a 7.5-inch barrel, and then they had a stainless steel midsection, and then they had a monocore aluminum final section. So it's like, 6 inches, 4 inches, and then another 6-inch section to make the full 16. And initially, I believe, and again, there isn't any like actual internet proof for any of this, and I'm kind of like a secondary source, if that, on what exactly the issue was with Keystone Lake Armory. By the time I showed up, they were already gone. So my understanding is these guns were put together where they were just screwed together effectively. So you just had a barrel that had 2 devices screwed onto it, and then an end cap, and then they wrapped that in an aluminum overshroud, and they had a layer of fiberglass, and then they had these outer tubes. So they didn't get super hot, which was pretty cool. I mean, that's one of the major problems with integrals, is that they get stupidly hot. But they, as you're probably aware, if you don't pin and weld your components to make 16 inches, the ATF considers that on a rifle lower, rifle lower in stock and all the stuff. That's an SBR.
Just a little.
They really didn't like that. So Keystone Lake Armory ATF made KLA take all these guns back and permanently affix it all together. And then they went back to their customers. So it's a small company. They don't make that many guns. It's a huge financial expense because they have to take care of these before they can continue to spend their time and their effort in making more product to make more money, right? They're only going to make, a couple $100 a piece on these guns. They're not making all the pins and the bolt carriers and everything else, so they've got to deal with their suppliers and the proprietary parts that they make themselves. Effectively, all these guns came back, they got fixed, they go back to their customers. ATF doesn't like that because apparently when they fixed them, they used set screws. Instead of like pin and welding all the components together, they were set screwed in stack to make 16 inches. And that apparently doesn't constitute pin and weld. I know, shocker. So they had to take all these guns back again and then pin and weld them. And then about halfway in the QC process, or not QC, the RMA repair process of getting all of the guns fixed, they ran out of money. So company goes belly up. There's a number of 22 suppressors that Irwin's had. There was like 6 or 7 of them that were just cores because the sleeves had issues. So we sent sleeves for the 22 cans off to get repaired. We never got those back. There were a number of Ripsaws that were like half here, half there, split up, like boxes of parts, just like some random baffles like that were laying around. And that was kind of how it was left, just because you couldn't. These people no longer were in business. You couldn't get a hold of them. They no longer existed. I mean, Irwin's was SOL and had a stack of these things laying around. So I cobbled one together from the parts because they had been here for 6 or 7 years just sitting in the safe when I got to them. And I convinced David Irwin, the previous owner of the property here, to let me have one of these things and play with it. So I paid the $200. We got the stamp processed. And that's kind of how I ended up with a Ripsaw. that's pretty much all I know about Keystone Lake Armory.
Well, I also wonder now, how many people are in the same situation you are that had a whole
That have
box
half
of
a
these
gun?
parts, or have made this, or how many of those parts are sitting around that nobody knows that they belong
Locally,
to this gun?
probably 2 or 3 dozen.
And how many of those parts are just confiscated by the ATF at this point?
Oh yeah, I mean the problem is that when the ATF goes through it and bankrupts a manufacturing enterprise, they're not going to poke around and wait and make sure that everybody gets taken care of.
No.
They're there to slash and burn and take paperwork, right? So
Maybe you'll find out about it like a
maybe
decade later.
eventually some of this will get remedied. So there was actually a couple of these guns that ended up coming back through that I had to tinker with over the years because there's not very many gunsmiths in our area here, at least not very many qualified ones. So it's like, people have a thing. They spent this much money. They want them to work. They bring them in. We try and work on them. We get them to run as best as we can. And then they go back out into the wild again. So every once in a while, one of these things will pop back up. This one ended up being mine, and I did a bunch of stuff to it. My opinion on this was, since Keystone Lake Armory no longer existed, there's no warranty to violate, right? So go as far as you want to, do your stuff. This upper is all Ripsaw for the most part. It's got a gas busting charging handle. This is a Irradian Raptor SD. That's basically essential in this gun because you have suppressor from the barrel nut to the muzzle. That's a lot of internal volume. It takes a while for all of that gas to vent back out of both ends. So you do get a fair amount of gas back in the face with integrals just by dint of the volume alone.
It's not a flow through. So
No, Lord, no.
You're just compressing all.
I'm not even sure I'm not even sure Hux was an idea when these guys were around. I don't know their history either, but
I think OSS would have been.
yeah, it would have. Yeah, early OSS. Yeah, but no, this gun. So it's got a fail zero bolt carrier group in it. No particular reason other than it's chromed. Eugene Stoner built the perfect rifle, and we've been screwing it up ever since. A chrome-plated bolt carrier group is the way to go. They're slippery. They don't foul up too bad. And in a gun like this, that is going to be a dirt pig for its entire life, it makes a lot of sense to use a chrome-plated bolt carrier group because you're going to be cleaning the gun a ton. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I will say when I got this, it was dirty.
Yeah.
Like, I've only shot probably 50 rounds through it.
I maybe shot 100.
I had to kind of clean off a little bit. The buffer is definitely dirty, which I'll show because I have not touched that. But
There's so much blowback.
that BCG was black about halfway through.
This gun gets disgusting. But anyway,
It's fun though.
The barrel that was in this from Keystone Lake Armory, they were branded KLA. I'm not sure exactly where they were sourcing their barrels from, but it didn't have a good shoulder on it. I wasn't confident in it, so I swapped that out for a 7.5-inch ballistic advantage 300 black eye barrel. Pin and welded that to the midsection, and then pin and welded the midsection to the final baffle stack, which is an aluminum monocore. Very, very reminiscent to a Gemtech. I'm not sure if they basically just copied that design or it was just heavily inspired, wink and nod. But that really, really looked like a Gemtech Abyss to me. For that end stack. The outer sleeve had these enormous elevated key mod rails the whole way down, from this level all the way to the muzzle, and the whole thing was rectangular, octagonal, just this huge block of aluminum that these were machined out of. This thing must have cost a fortune to machine in just time because they were making them on a CNC machine in-house. I don't believe they were contracting those out because this is the only gun that has that tube on it. I don't think anybody else was making that for them. I think they were doing it in house.
I mean, it's not big as it is.
No,
it's probably quad rail size.
It's a little bit. It's about the same size as a Midwest SD handguard.
But yeah, I've seen the only pictures that I can really find, other than the old ass videos, are a couple different auction sites that have had them or random forums, and they have, you said, that.
No one has done this to one of these except for me that I know of, and I looked real hard. Search engines are desperately trying to bury the old information on the internet.
Yeah, there's nothing.
But anyway, So I put this in my milling machine, and I machined those suckers off. Because I thought, okay, slick is better than this god-awful raised key mod. You might be thinking to yourself, oh, well, the key mod couldn't have been that bad. Trust me, random person online.
It's bad looking.
It was horrific. It literally felt like you were, I don't even know.
I also don't even know, like, there's space.
It felt like you were holding a gutter.
Well, there's space in between there too, so I wonder how flexible that key mod was.
It wouldn't have held very much weight. It really wouldn't have. I mean, it was maybe a 30-second thick between the top and the underside of the key mod sections. So I buzzed them off. I didn't like them. Narrowed all of that up, and I put these little radius ends on there just to kind of doll it up a little bit. It's not perfect. I've got a pretty small milling machine downstairs. You couldn't fit a bigger one through the door, so I kind of got what I've got. The front end of this, I stuck this between centers, and I machined this down to make it look tubular, and then I painted it black. So this is, from here to here, this is all one piece of aluminum, even though it's a different color. I know how people get about like faux silencers. This looks substantially better than it did. It was kind of a recovery op when I got it as far as the aesthetics go. And I think the way that it turned out, especially since Jesse's got them, I take it that's burn-proof gear? Yeah, that wrap.
It definitely doesn't get super hot. It gets a little warm, so I believe I have a heavy cover under there as well as wrapped with goon tape just to give it a little bit more texture to grab onto. Because I mean, the aluminum is a little slippery, and personally I like a hand stop, but there's no way to, unless I want to super glue one on there or something. But
the upper had commercial feed lips. If any of you guys are old enough to remember when ARs had commercial feed lips, so they wouldn't work well with Stanag mil-spec magazines. This was that, so I had to go in and modify those in the upper. The lower that I elected for is this Shield Arms folding lower. These have been around for a little while now. They're pretty trick. And the lines match, I think, really, really well. Especially after the paint, you pretty much couldn't tell that the upper and the lower were from two different manufacturers, unless you knew, which there's basically nobody left who really does. But it's got a CMC trigger in it. Jesse's put a ambi safety in this. I don't know whose safety it is.
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know either.
Yeah, probably a.
It's just some random safety that I had laying around.
Yeah, another influencer freebie.
Pretty much.
Yeah. So it's got just regular 6-position carbine stock and an MOE, Magpul stock. The real fanciness is kind of in here. So this gun is disgusting, and I would rather not bathe in grease, so I'm not going to take it apart right now. This has a JP captured silent recoil spring. And if you know about these shield folding lowers, these are supposed to have a proprietary buffer in them that has an extension off the face of the buffer that will reach out and touch the back of the bolt carrier group. Because obviously with this folding mechanism, we've extended the amount of space between the back of the BCG and the front of the buffer. So we have to have something to bridge that. I did not have a solution for that at first, because you can't, a JP captured system was not designed to be run with an extended buffer, because it doesn't have necessarily a buffer like we would regularly know it, right? So what I did is I took a piece of parted off barrel. I'm not going to attempt that again. You'll just have to take my word for it. There's a little piece of barrel that I've machined to fit the inside of the tail of the bolt carrier group. And I've got a couple of grooves in it, and there are O-rings on those grooves that help seal it in place, so that whenever the gun is folded, that buffer that little extension doesn't fall out. And it bridges perfectly between the JP captured and the back of the carrier tail. And it's also got a hole through the center of it, because if you're familiar with these JPs, there is effectively a guide rod that lives in the middle of that buffer system. So we had to have a pass through for the spacer, so that when the bolt carrier group came back, the spacer made no contact with it. All that was, a little bit of a technical challenge, but nothing insane. Overall, this gun is It's pretty unique. It's a unicorn. As far as I know, there's nobody who's still running around shooting these things very often. This may be the only one that has been effectively modernized this way. The upper didn't cost me anything.
Well, also, Keystone's no longer a thing, like you said. So if you were to hit a baffle or something, you have no effectively way to fix it.
Not unless you know an 07 SOT with like an 0702 can work on other people's cans. That just has to come in and out of their manufacturing book. I mean, it's all a bunch of legal crap. But there are companies that'll do recourse. If you have an 07 or know someone who does have an 07 and you can do machining, it wouldn't be that difficult to build whatever module of this barrel that you needed. One thing that I did do in this that for performance I probably shouldn't have done, but for ease of ass pain later, is I went and opened the orifices up in the center and end sections, like the actual baffled sections of the front end. Those are 38 caliber now. Not the midsection. The midsection is 32 caliber and the end section is 38, just in case for some reason something got loose in there. It's pin and welded. It really shouldn't. If it comes loose, I'm sorry. You've been shooting an SBR this entire time. But it's just a preventative so that you don't get a baffle strike in this thing, because Lord knows it's going to be an uphill battle trying to get this thing fixed.
Yeah,
so
you're the one that's going to do it.
Yeah, and I don't want to.
So you were also telling me the other day, I believe, as far as your knowledge goes, this is quieter than it came stock from the factory, because you kind of got...
Yes. So one of the big things, one of the big problems with the Ripsaw is that the upper alone weighed like 7.5 pounds. There's a lot of material in here. There's the barrel, the baffle stacks, the inner liner, the fiberglass layer, the outer liner, the end cap, all of this hardware. The serialized portion on this is actually pretty interesting. The serialized portion of this is actually the barrel nut itself. And this thing is solid steel, and it weighs a crap load. So what I did is I went in there and I took a look at every part on the inside, and if it did not have a mechanical reason to have material there, I removed it. So this thing has been uber skeletonized on the inside. It's effectively got a pencil barrel, which doesn't actually matter all that much, because this is whatever the opposite of free floated is. It's got 4 nuts that hold the handguard on in the back, and then the front, it's got a nut that compresses the barrel up against that. So everything between here and here is compressed together. So we don't really need a heavy barrel in there, because we're not going to have any structural, there's no purpose to have that much material there if we're not free floating the barrel. The weight and support of the whole system is on the outer tube, not the inner tube. So effectively, that's got a pencil in it. The midsection, we've opened a few things up. Ball end mills, putting dimples on every flat surface in there. Just anything to do that you can squeeze out that extra little tenth of a percentage of internal volume in order to get things super, super quiet. If you really wanted to, you could probably honestly, I don't know how you get it all in there, but you could probably put wire pulling gel or something in this stack and get it a little bit quieter still. And there's definitely enough material in this end that if you wanted to open that up and come up with some kind of an end cap for this, you could probably make removable wipes a thing. I didn't see the purpose in that. We've already got a 300 blackout, which is not a very high pressure cartridge. It doesn't have a ton of gas associated with it, like a handful of grains of pistol powder. In a suppressor that's already got like double, if not triple, the volume of a conventional 30 caliber suppressor, I didn't think that we needed to go that far with it. But if you theoretically decided you want to, it wouldn't be that difficult of a thing to try and do later. But yeah, this, it's pretty quiet. But between the JP Silent, the improved inner core of the suppressor, the sheer volume of it, and the fact that I've gassed it for subs. So I opened up the gas port, and then I used, I can't remember what company makes them, but it's a set of graduated gas tubes the orifice in the gas tube itself are different sizes. So effectively the gas tube acts like an adjustable gas block. So I opened up the gas port to the largest possible spec that I could find for a 300 blackout, because I'm not trying to get it where we end up with chunks of jacket in the gas system. But it's a big hole. And then metered it back down and tuned it that way so that we could get this thing to cycle subs. It prefers 200 grain Winchester white box. That's like its favorite load for whatever reason. Just garbage tier 200 grain bullets. The 230 grain Sierra Match Kings, those sorts of things. Maybe it's because of the feed ramps. I'm not sure, but it doesn't like to feed them quite as well. When you get a barrel this short, they get picky. And then you combine that with a cartridge that cannot decide what gender it wants to be. It is a supersonic hot rod 7.62-39 contender, and it's also a 45 ACP handgun. And it has no idea what it wants to be, and that much for pressure gradient. If you want the gun to beat itself to death with supers, you can get it to run subs. Or all subs, I mean. So we've chosen to gas the rifle to run the vast majority of the common subsonic ammo that you'll find, but not beat itself to death with supers. You can kind of achieve that by adding additional mass to the system instead of spring, because the more static mass you have, the more you can delay the unlocking, the more pressure you have in the system. You just don't want to add so much that you end up having to need more spring, and then you need more gas, and then it's cart chasing horse, and it ends up being this huge problem. So this will run most subs. It likes supers. Accuracy on this gun is not fantastic. As you could imagine, it looks like it should be. It's 16 inches long, and it's got a rifle stock and, all the things. But it's a 7-inch barrel.
Yeah,
So it's about a 4-inch gun. Right around there.
I mean, it's effective.
It's good enough.
I personally don't know if I would take this one hog hunting, because, I mean, while he did say he took a lot of material out of the suppressor end of it, it's still a little hefty. I mean, it's still solid.
Yeah. I wouldn't hike with it for sure.
No, definitely not.
It's probably what? Maybe 10 pounds total now? 9.5, something?
It's not super heavy when you first pick it up, but an extended range day or hog hunting.
And the problem is all the mass is out front, and a gun is a lever, and the further that weight is away from the point of leverage, the more you're going to feel it, right? It's cool for light stuff. I've got this thing hot. And that 100 rounds that I fired through, they were pretty much straight.
Yeah, it's gotten a little toasty.
It's reliable for me, or it was. It's Jesse's gun now. We did a trade on this gun.
He has passed off the burden to me.
Well, it's cool. I mean, I would have liked to have kept it, but Jesse gave me a screaming deal that I couldn't really pass up. So.
Well, it's also, I mean, I've had enough ARs. If I was going to trade for something, it'd be like an AK, bigger caliber carbine or something unique. And this is
one of a kind.
This is definitely unique. So, I mean, if anybody really has any questions, obviously put them down below. But effectively, this gun is legal as just the suppressor. It doesn't need the SBR because, like you said, it's been pen welded.
It's 16 inches.
All I had to do is pay the one tax stamp, and I'm all good at the moment until
private party
something.
Yeah, Form 4.
So is there anything else you would like people to know about this before?
I mean, it's neat. I don't know where you would find the information on some of these old dead companies. I mean, they're gone. Like Hop has got a really cool thing going where he buys old catalogs and magazines from the early 2000s. He goes on eBay and Gunbroker and places and buys those because he physically has a page with a gun ad that has a product set up a certain way and has the description of that product. And if that product no longer exists and you can't find it anywhere, it's legitimately archaeology for stuff that was sold 25 years ago. And that to me is insane. But if you have really cool, rare, interesting stuff, post about it. Put it up on your Instagram, put it up on social media, spread the word so that we have some of this information back. This company, when I put this gun together, they had a Facebook and an Instagram, and those are both gone.
Yeah, I think they have a YouTube and it's still got old videos on.
Yeah. And they haven't posted anything for 12 years. So there are people out there who have these guns that have zero support. They've got no new information on them. They're just collecting dust in the back of somebody's safe. And these people are going to grow old, and their grandkids are going to say, "Hey, what's that?" And granddad's going to go, "I don't know, just something I bought, didn't work." And fair enough. I mean, good luck finding info.
Yeah.
And this doesn't even have Keystone Lake Armory written anywhere on it. It just says Ripsaw underneath the dust cover. That's the literal only, other than the
branding, zero logos,
the serial numbers. But I mean, it's super cool. It sounds rad.
It's something else.
But
so I mean, like he said, if you don't put it out there, this is gonna be the longest video ever on YouTube for a Keystone Ripsaw, because
probably the reference material from here
it is going to be the reference and the history. So we just had like a 30-minute history lesson basically on this gun. So I know you want to see it shoot, which we'll get to here in a second, but like, this is the archive for this gun pretty much. Besides a couple of the other videos I'll throw up of just people 1.5 minutes of shooting and whatnot. But yeah, let's go to the range and shoot this thing. All right, you finally made it to the shooting portion. I'm not gonna make you wait any longer. I do have this microphone up top on here, but I do have my shotgun microphone over there. So hopefully, I'm no audio engineer, so I'm not even gonna sit here and act like I know what I'm talking about. Hopefully you get some good audio from there. If not, I don't know what to tell you. Shoot a couple rounds here. I'm at about 25 yards. You're like 3 feet from me. And then I'm gonna try and move back. Now, Hunter said this likes 200 grain Winchester white box. I don't have that. Shooting 200 grain Magtex. Let's see how it goes. Now, you saw it lock up there. With this Shield Arms, we've been kind of seeing that it's a little finicky. This gun is not perfect in any way. It is definitely a novelty. It's not something I would take out hunting or, to do some kind of duty thing. While I think guns are tools, this one to me is more of kind of like gun history. Like if I have it sitting in a safe or something, showing people some guns and they ask what it is, I can tell them about it. Maybe take it to a range day, but for this, especially on this lower, I haven't tried it on any other lowers, but with this lower, there's a little bit of play. So if you don't have this buffer straight, then something kind of binds a little bit that stops the carrier. But other than that, I mean, this thing runs pretty well. That's the only issue that I've seen so far. Honestly, I will say that I was expecting this to be a little bit more quiet than it actually is, but it is still pretty quiet. I don't have ears on. There's barely any kind of crack. And it's kind of a fun thing to shoot. All right, I'm gonna move the camera and I'm gonna move back, so hopefully you can hear some of it. It's a little windy, so hopefully that does not affect things, but I'm gonna set you up close to kind of where the target's at, and I'm gonna come back to 25 feet, 25 yards. So here's what it sounds like at 25. Let's go back to 50. All right, here's what it sounds like at 100. Let me shoot steel. All right, I don't even think this thing is zeroed, and I hit that first try. Dusk pop. Okay, if for some reason you don't know what it's like shooting 300 blackout unsuppressed, this is a 10.5 inch barrel. Surprisingly, that was not as bad as I thought. Now we're gonna throw my Evo 30 hub on here. Give it a couple shots with that. Yeah, a little bit more cracky with this than it is with the actual Ripsaw, obviously. I mean, the actual Ripsaw, you got 7.5-inch barrel and then like 11 inches of suppressor here. I mean, for this suppressor, it's mostly the end, so you got like maybe 4 to 5 inches. It's still quiet, I will give it that. The Ripsaw is definitely more quiet, obviously. Suppressed 5.56 with the same can. Now, I will say, surprisingly, this thing doesn't get as hot as I thought it would. I mean, your whole handguard is basically a suppressor. You know, all that heat is coming down here. Now, I have, like I said, a rail wrap on here and also goon tape. Mostly just for, you know, preventative heat. Because, I mean, it does get warm. What is going on with my sling here? It does get warm. So, like, down here's a little warm. Up here's a little warm after 20 rounds. But it doesn't get, like, stupidly hot like your traditional end of barrel suppressor would. Like Hunter said, though, this thing does get dirty. Again, not something that I would do as like a duty rifle, hog hunting, whatever you want to do. It's a little heavy, and especially would get pretty heavy after a while. But as like a little novelty item, or like kind of just something different than your average gun, I kind of like it. Yep, still gotta work out that buffer kink. Well, if you feel like you learned something, then I don't know, let me know in the comments. I don't really know. Yeah, this was kind of just a history lesson of this gun, because like I said, there's really nothing you can find about this gun besides people just shooting it. If you enjoyed, let me know. Like, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Go check out all of the sponsors down in the description, and I'll see you in the next video.